Hey there, welcome back to the Bussedamove YouTube channel. My name is William, and today we're going to talk about the custom door that we built for our schoolie. We were able to build a front hinge single swing door that maintained the original look of the bus door, mainly because it is the original bus door. Spoiler alert, all we did was surround it in steel, but the trick is we built a custom piano hinge out of commercial grade door hinges and some angled steel, and we welded it in there and made a new jamb, and it was awesome. If you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you exactly everything that we did, how it turned out, and how you can do one better learning from our mistakes. Before we get started, if you have any questions about rebuilding your front door of your schoolie, then chances are you probably have other questions like, how do I jump off into bus life, van life, or full-time RV living while continuing to make a living? Well, I've put together a free resource and a link right below this video that outlines the 3 simple ways that my wife and I use to make our full-time living without necessarily having to wake up in the same place every morning. It's an ebook called A Guide to Making Money on the Road, and I want to give it to you for free in a link right below the video. But if you're here, you had a lot of the same questions that we did, mainly how in the world do we do this? I mean, obviously for security purposes, for security reasons, you're not gonna want the door that can just be pried open by anyone. But since our bus door was powered by air, that means when the bus is turned off, the door just kind of swings a little willy-nilly. So obviously it's a little not secure, obviously it's a little drafty because, I mean, the little rubber that touches each other, that's not really a good proper seal. So, you know, going forward, turning this into a home, how do you make it better? So we went back and forth and around, and we were talking about building a custom door out of steel, and I've seen people do that and it's super awesome. But I just thought that there would be a way to maintain the original vibe, and a lot of people do that and it looks good, but I wanted to use our actual door. So when you start looking at the measurements and things like that, when you start pulling the rubber, you know, flappers where they meet off, you realize you have a lot of extra space. And the hole that the door goes in is significantly larger than the door itself. And we were able to use that to our advantage. So we looked around and we eventually realized, you know, there's just enough room on the top and the bottom to put 2-inch flat bar, you know, 1/4-inch flat bar, some pretty sturdy stuff. And then on the sides, we had about 4.5, 5 inches to play with. And so out of that 5 inches, we decided to do 2-inch by 2-inch square tubing at 3/16 inch thick. It's pretty solid, pretty real stuff. And we just built a frame around the door. And what we did, we made the original door one piece before we did all of this. And the way we did that, you know, the more we looked at our particular door, and I hope yours is the same, when we looked at ours, it was just extruded aluminum, and the glass just went into the pocket like this all the way around the door. The longer we looked at it, we realized, you know, we could just take one side off of one door, pull it off, and like put it off on the side, and then that would leave an open hole in the extruded aluminum, and by hole I mean channel. And so then the open raw glass from the other side went straight in. Basically, by the end, we had one extra, you know, 7-foot tall piece of extruded aluminum that we could discard or put off to the side for another project. And we had one door that was about 1 5/8 or so skinnier because we had that one piece missing. So that makes one solid piece. So from there, we took ratchet straps and cinched everything, the new one single piece door together. And then that was the framework for how we were gonna weld the steel around it. So, you know, we have the 2 vertical sticks of 2-inch tubing, and we have the 2 horizontal flat bars on the top and bottom. And the top of the door and the bottom of the door, we were able to screw into the extruded aluminum to secure the door at the top and bottom. And then we were able to just take some of our silicone and seal all the way down the 2-inch vertical bars. So the door was made, but how in the world do you hang it? So what we did, we looked around the entire internet for what's called a piano hinge, and you may know that from like the top of an old school upright piano. It has that long hinge all the way across the flap that covers the actual keyboard. Also has a long hinge with a lot of places for screws to go in. So it's a uniform pull when you cover the keys or open the lids and things like that. So obviously you want something like that, but the door is now stinking heavy because it's made of steel and about 3/4 inch acrylic or whatever the glass is. You can find them on Amazon all day long for 20 bucks or whatever, but like I knew it needed to be stronger than that. So we started looking up commercial piano hinges, and you see this a lot on like emergency doors at like hospitals, the double swing doors with the panic push bar thing, all that stuff. Those doors have thick 1/4 inch piano hinges from top to bottom, just to make it more secure. You'll not run through that door anytime soon. It holds the weight of the door, and it holds up to people kicking on it and things like that, trying to bust it open. So that's what we needed, but that's what we were going for. But as the internet showed us, those hinges were about $800 a piece, and there wasn't any way in the world we were going to do that. So what we wound up doing is finding a hinge that looked like it would work, and it was about 80 bucks or something. So I bought it, and then we went to pick it up, and it was by no means the right hinge. So back to the drawing board. So about that time, we had the thought, like, what if we built our own hinge? And so the way we did that, we had steel all the way around the door, so we knew we could weld metal to the door, So another version of a commercial hinge is a thick plate, like 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch steel hinge flaps with like ball bearings and stuff. And that individual hinge can hold a lot of weight, but we thought, what if we do like 5 or 6 all the way down? But then how do you get those uniform? So we decided we would do 2-inch angle, which is kind of the go-to metal. We have 2-inch angled steel all over the bus at 1/8 inch thick. And we had some laying around, so we measured a piece that was as tall as the door, and we went and bought these commercial grade single hinges. They come in pairs, or actually they come in 3, so we bought 2 packs. And so we had 6 hinges with ball bearings, and the grand total of all of them combined, it was going to hold several hundred pounds. Our door is probably 100 pounds, maybe a little less. And so what we wound up doing there was we laid the hinges into the channel. You put the channel upright, kind of V up like this, through our vise. And so we laid the hinges there, marked them out with a marker or soapstone or something. And then we went through and cut out around where they would be. And then with our welding clamps, the trusty welding C-clamps, we clamped the hinge into place, welded the hinge into the bar. But you have to be very careful there, because if you just do a bead all the way around, it could warp the steel, because it's not super strong. I mean, it's strong, but it's not going to stand up to the thousands of degrees of heat times, a minute or so to weld each individual hinge. So what we did is the old bodywork trick where you just tack weld it. So we tack welded it, and then it's very tedious, very time consuming, but it didn't warp, which is exactly what we wanted. So we were able to tack weld each individual hinge in. We put a little dot here, here, here. Took a while, but we had a good, awesome piano hinge. So once our custom piano hinge was made, we laid the door flat on our sawhorses, and we put the new 2-inch angle piano hinge over the top of the door, and we centered it up and made sure where it was going to fit on top of the door, and then we tack welded again through the screw holes of the hinges on the flap that was not embedded in the angle. We tack welded through the holes and got the hinge on the door. And so once it was there, we took the entire door itself with the hinge welded onto it. We put it up in the hole, and from there it was like hanging any other door. If you've ever hung a door or hung a window or anything like that, chances are if you're at this point and you're now trying to figure this out, then you've done something similar and you've had to shim something else up before. If nowhere else, inside your bus, already you've probably done something like this. So we put the door up into the hole, and we got the little wedge shims that you shim doors with, and some screwdrivers and things like that, and built a little wedge system, and we put the door where it was supposed to be. And then from there, we ran around to the emergency door and climbed in the bus with the welder that was already inside the bus, and we put some more tack welds. Remember, we're not trying to damage the hinge or any of the other glass. Certainly, pro tip, side note, cover all the glass. Cover the glass with something thick we used moving blankets to cover all of the acrylic pieces, especially the door, because if that plastic gets the little embeds of slag from the welder in it, you're never going to get it out and it's going to be ugly. So anyway, the door was in the bus, shimmed up, ready to roll, so we tack welded all the way down the bottom and got it in place. And so once it wasn't going to fall back out on top of us, we were able to open the door, and then some good old-fashioned brute force, we put a 2x4 in the door jamb itself and pulled down, and that pushed the hinge all the way up against the bus. So then once it was all the way wedged there, we were able to tack weld the front of the hinge, and then we moved our 2x4 down, you know, a little bit further, tack welded again once it was wedged, and then once it was fully tack welded in, the door swung perfectly. It was light to the touch. You can't tell at all that it was a 100-pound door because it swings effortlessly, and it works. The hinge was beautiful. It worked the first time, and we're so proud that it did. So from there, we were able to go, once it was in place, and just weld the rest of it so it's never coming out of the hole, and it'll be there forever, and it's going to be great. And it works like a champ, so we're super excited about it. So let me give you some final thoughts and some lessons learned. We didn't learn this lesson, thank God. Thank God it worked out like it was supposed to. But if your bus is not sitting level, you can't shim it until it's level according to like a level, because that could be lying to you based on how the bus is sitting on the ground. In our case, our bus was sitting on an unlevel piece of concrete, so we knew we couldn't just stick a level there, shim it till it was level, and then weld it, because that wasn't going to work, and we needed the door to swing perfectly and swing very lightly. My wife is a very tiny person, so she can't lift a lot, so that door had to swing effortlessly as if it was the door at your house. And so the way we accomplished that is we shimmed it level, or square rather, to the body of the bus. And so you have lots of straight and plumb lines on the bus that you can use. So we picked one, and we actually picked one on the horizontal line, and we picked one on the vertical line, and we shimmed the door until it was correct, just like that, and then we welded it in. So when it's all fine and good and done, it swings perfectly. So you'll have to make sure, I mean, that's the one thing you have to fight for when you're hanging your door just like this, is you have to level it and square it to the body of the bus, not to the world, because the bus may not be sitting just right. Hopefully you'll get to this part of the video before you launch off into your welding, and you can avoid a pitfall such as that. What I learned, the lesson that if I could go back right now and do it all over again, what I would do is, instead of encasing the door in 2 inches down each side on the front and back, what I would do is I would do 3 inches on the side away from the windshield, and I'd do 1 inch by 2 inch, like a rectangle tubing by the window. And if such a thing doesn't exist, I would do 2 1-inch pieces of tubing welded together to make a 1x2 on that side. We fought for the aesthetic and making it all symmetrical, and it is, and it looks great, but what we've run into is every household deadbolt lock, every household doorknob, every latch of some kind that we thought we could use, as it turns out, they are wider than 2 inches. So we've had a time finding a door latch for our bus. A simple way to avoid that is by doing 1 inch on the leading edge of the door, like toward the windshield, and do 3 inches on the back, because most of these doorknobs, deadbolts, all that stuff is under 3 inches. So if you had a 3-inch strip there, you could rig any sort of doorknob, any sort of deadbolt that you would want to. So if I could do it over again, that's exactly what I would do. But that's just how we did it. It works. Like, the door opens, it hinges perfectly, it's beautiful. But what did you do? If you plan to do something different, or if you have done something different, I'd love to know. So definitely comment on the video, start a conversation, because, you know, we all get better when we talk about things like this. As always, if this has meant anything to you or answered any of your questions, I'll invite you to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with whoever you can. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bus love.